No one in that massive auditorium expected anything special from the small, thin Filipino boy standing alone on stage, holding a borrowed guitar that looked almost bigger than his body. But within the next few minutes, this poor kid would shock the judges, silence the crowd, and leave even Simon Cowell staring in disbelief. Before this unbelievable story unfolds, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us that miracles still happen when talent meets destiny. The boy's name was Miguel Santos, and at just 13 years old, his life had already been shaped by hardship, sacrifice, and quiet dreams that no one around him truly believed could come true. Miguel was born in a small coastal town in the Philippines, a place where the ocean was beautiful but life was brutally unforgiving. His father had once been a fisherman, leaving before sunrise and returning after sunset with just enough catch to keep the family alive. But when a powerful storm destroyed their boat, everything changed overnight. With no savings, no insurance, and no help, Miguel's father was forced to take irregular labor jobs, while his mother washed clothes for wealthier families in nearby neighborhoods. Music was never supposed to be part of Miguel's life. There was no money for lessons, no instruments in the house, and no one with connections in the entertainment world. But when Miguel was 9 years old, he found an old, broken guitar in a garbage pile near a closed resort. The strings were rusted, the wood was cracked, and it barely made a sound. Still, Miguel carried it home like a treasure. His father wanted to throw it away, saying it was useless junk, but Miguel begged to keep it. That night, while his parents slept, Miguel sat on the floor and pressed his fingers against the strings until they bled, trying to copy melodies he had heard on a neighbor's radio. The first song Miguel ever learned was Hotel California, not because it was easy, but because it haunted him. The melody stayed in his head, and the lyrics felt mysterious and powerful, even though he barely understood English at the time. He memorized every note by ear, replaying the song in his mind again and again. There was no internet, no tutorials, no guidance. Just a boy, a broken guitar, and an impossible dream. As the years passed, Miguel began playing on the streets to help his family. Tourists would sometimes stop, surprised by the depth of sound coming from such a young performer. Some dropped coins. Others simply watched in silence. Miguel never begged. He just played. Rain or shine, he stood on street corners, his voice growing stronger, his fingers faster, his confidence slowly building. But for every compliment, there were 10 reminders of reality. People told him music would never feed his family. Teachers told him to focus on practical skills. Even friends laughed, saying dreams like his were for rich kids in America, not poor boys from forgotten towns. Then came the twist no one expected. A Filipino-American tourist recorded Miguel singing Hotel California on an old phone and uploaded it online before flying back to the United States. For weeks, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the video began spreading. Comments poured in from people shocked by the raw emotion in the boy's voice. One comment caught the attention of a talent scout who worked indirectly with international auditions for America's Got Talent. At first, the scout thought it was fake. But after confirming Miguel's story, an invitation was sent. The problem was money. Miguel's family couldn't even afford a passport, let alone flights to America. It seemed like the dream was over before it could begin. Miguel didn't cry. He simply nodded and went back to playing on the streets. But once again, fate intervened. A local charity heard about the invitation and raised just enough funds to help Miguel and his father travel. His mother stayed behind, praying every night that her son would return safely. When Miguel arrived in America, everything overwhelmed him. The lights, the buildings, the language, the size of the theater. Backstage at America's Got Talent, he sat quietly while other contestants practiced vocal runs or talked confidently about winning. Miguel said nothing. He tuned his guitar and whispered a prayer. When his name was finally called, he walked onto the stage wearing simple clothes and worn-out shoes. The audience applauded politely but without excitement. Simon Cowell leaned forward with his usual skeptical expression. He asked Miguel why he was there. Miguel answered honestly, saying he wanted to help his family and prove that dreams can come from anywhere. Simon raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. Then Miguel began to play. From the very first note of Hotel California, the room changed. The familiar song sounded completely new, stripped down, emotional, and haunting. Miguel's voice carried pain, hope, and strength all at once. The audience stopped breathing. The judges stared at each other in shock. Simon's expression shifted from doubt to confusion, then to pure disbelief. Halfway through the song, Miguel added a guitar solo that no one expected from a self-taught street kid. His fingers moved effortlessly, as if the guitar was an extension of his soul. By the final chorus, many in the audience were wiping away tears. When the last note faded, there was silence for a brief moment, followed by a thunderous standing ovation. Simon Cowell stood up. He admitted he had not expected that performance and said he had heard Hotel California hundreds of times but never like this. He asked Miguel where he learned to play like that. When Miguel explained his story, the room fell silent again. Simon shook his head and said this was exactly why the show existed. The votes were unanimous. Miguel went through to the next round. But the story didn't end there. In later rounds, Miguel faced new challenges. Critics said he was a one-song wonder. Others claimed he relied too much on emotion. During one rehearsal, his guitar strings snapped minutes before going on stage. Panic set in. He borrowed another guitar, unfamiliar and stiff. Still, he performed flawlessly, proving his talent was real. The biggest twist came when Miguel received news from home that his father had fallen ill. Distraught, Miguel considered quitting and returning to the Philippines. Producers gave him time to decide. That night, Miguel played Hotel California alone in an empty theater, not for judges or cameras but for his family. The next day, he chose to continue, saying his father wanted him to finish what he started. Miguel did not win the competition. But something far greater happened. A record producer approached him after the show, offering mentorship and opportunities. Donations poured in for his family. His town back home celebrated him as a hero. The broken guitar that once came from a garbage pile was placed in a local museum as a symbol of hope. Years later, Miguel returned to that same stage as a guest performer, stronger, wiser, and still humble. He played Hotel California one more time, not as a poor street kid, but as a reminder that talent has no borders and dreams can rise from the hardest places.